I got this on at last. I always have technical problems. What? You won't care about. So let's go on with this. Video about um, politics, like class war. I mean, the video I did the other day, yesterday, was very much on the UBI as something that if the techies are right, then it's inevitable and there's no need to be controversial. Obviously, class is controversial. Definitely by definition, you just can't deny it, can you? Whether it's you should go in for this or you shouldn't, you can't deny it's controversial. So I admit I'm not it's not diplomatic as much as yesterday's video or this video as such. But one of the things about me is that although I was brought up as a kid by a right wing dad, I always think he's in the propaganda matrix and it's not really real. It's just brainwashed. And I look at the environment I was brought up in when I was a kid. I noticed all the other parents. I mean, all of them. I can't name any that weren't. Were all left wing economically. There's a bit that didn't like the Conservatives, the Tories, and you know what I mean. More Labour or socialist or left wing, whatever you want to call it. The like class, the working class. I've titled this "Working Class Solidarity," that sort of thing, and I can name them. I can name them. Libs's parents, Mac's parents, Mac's best mate. Well, after later on in his life, a bit more when he moved to Stockton. Mallers, the Mallers they are, his parents. Mac's wife, Marie, their family on the left. Get back to Libs again. Libs' relations, like cousins, uncles, blah blah. They're on the left. Certain lasses I could name, their parents are on the left. Our next door neighbour, Greenswood, our next door neighbour, where we're at now, and all that sort of thing, although one now isn't when I was a kid. And this is just. And this is just from someone who wasn't that social, where I'd usually stuck to one or two people. So it's when I think if you multiply this, because I got vague impression from others who I didn't get on with, didn't ever really get on with, that their parents were, all on the left. Very few Tories, and if I can't name any, not one, zilch, from when I was a kid. Regarding that family, I'm sorry, regarding friends' parents or acquaintances' parents. Now, that sort of like brings up feelings of like class trait and stuff like this. Now, I want to get a comment from myself here that I noted down before, because now I think that left-ish sort of feelings haven't gone. I think what's happened is the middle class has become very working class in its bread and butter politics. In other words, they no longer demand tax cuts. They are more in favour of getting money to people who need it. So I think it's gone in the direction of where it was when I was a kid. Even though that when I was a kid, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work in the sense of nationally that there wasn't enough for the middle class were on the tax cut side. The Liberal Democrats were equidistant, whereas now they're closer to the left, whereas they were just positioning themselves between two parties in the 80s. They don't do that anymore because their voters are on the left. But the state superstructure exists for itself. You know what I think about that thing, and it's a very right-wing division in and of itself, from dividing it from us, and because they're not going over this wholeheartedly, I just don't think that they are anything to do with us in the sense that I think that they just exist for themselves. They connect to us in a sense, but it's not real. It's not real. They're just existing for themselves. So, for example, if we all collectively, people wanted to get rid of the state superstructure wouldn't say, "Oh, it's okay. It's a democracy. We're clear off." They would take us on. would take us on in a civil war. They'd say, okay, us versus you lot, and they'd say, we got the cops, we've got the guns, we got the tanks. That's what they'd like. I admit they'd win, unless it's really. I mean, you'd have to have um, the most brave, not just brave people, but a whole lot of them. There'd have to be so many on against the state superstructure, given what they have got compared to what you've got. Anyway, it's not what this video is about as such, civil war. Now, I don't think, by the way, that this working class solidarity means that everyone's thinking about politics all the time. Not like it's more like a supportive system that they want. Fair shares, redistribution, supportive system. Now, one or two people who have, believe in class war might be like really passionate about it. Others who believe in it might spend more time thinking about pop culture. So it's just a supportive, enabling system. It doesn't mean everyone's really well into it and thinking about it all the time, non-stop. No, it doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that. But the people who are for this are for fair shares. They are for redistribution. They are for equality. Sometimes anti-war. On the economics, it's clear cut. And yeah, I put a note here about merit, because equality and merit are not necessarily against each other, and not necessarily for each other either. So I just have to put how I see it, how the culture, minus the immediate family, brought up in the culture around me, how I think they see this issue about merit and equality when put together or challenged, whatever. Merit they believe in, we believe in, but not at the expense of redistribution and equality. For example, if we make it easier to afford for people to get to university, to go to university, so therefore it's cheaper or it's free, and then someone called Joe succeeds through that, thanks to that, he can go to uni now. And he gets a very well paid career out of it. Then that's a good thing. So we think that's a good thing. If a working class person goes to uni because they had that supportive environment around that enables him to do so, or her. That's a good thing. That is what we want to happen. Now, but Joe should remember his roots. Joe would have forgotten his roots if he supported a policy that then made it more expensive for people later on to go to university. So like he's gained from it and he thinks, oh, I'm on the right wing. I'm right wing now because I'm going to get absolutely loaded. Now, and then he says, let's drawbridge up. You can't go to uni like I did. That I think is fair to call that class traitor. He's allowed to do that. It's allowed to be a traitor. It's legally, rightly allowed. But we still think it's also fair to call him a class traitor. You know, it's like one of those things. It's I think it's doing something a little bit immoral, that just a little bit immoral, but it's not something you can say that you can't do. But it is okay to call that person a class traitor, I think, because if he was saying he was for all this, and then he benefits from the policies that we support to get him to go ahead, to get ahead, to succeed, to become well off, but then he suddenly says, "You lot can't," because I want to cut spending and taxes. I just find that absurd. So in my opinion, he's just a bit of a prat. He's got a degree, so I'll give him credit for that. But so, yeah. So all right, yeah. I made a note here. UBI. If what about UBI if that AI revolution, the that jobs bloodbath, what about if it's exaggerated, the AI revolution? Now, I admit that AI can bring down the divide and rule propagandist power and control state superstructure more effectively than class war can. Think about it. We've been hammering away at the corruption forever, and it's still there. Whereas artificial intelligence um, could be their downfall, and not even needing, without even needing us, all that effort, and it needed technology to do it, and it can do it without us. Now, I'd say this: the more able a capitalist system is at providing for large middle class, number of people in middle class, um, and meaning so that middle class is strong as well. A lot of middle class, and it's strong. It's not like what I said a minute ago, where it's supporting the left more than the right. Now, supporting the left more than the right, I would say it's not the type of capitalist strong that they want. Well, but the more it is strong, then the more difficult it is to transform society for the better. As capitalism's not doing too bad if people in that middle class feel relatively secure, stable, think they've got a good future, a good present, and are wanting tax cuts, just for the benefit of themselves. But if when you've got that sort of situation, and they think they've got this the professional, the future's good, then capitalism is not. It's almost impossible to see anywhere capitalism could collapse in that situation. And you would have been right to think I can't see anywhere it could collapse for the last 100 years, whatever. So its apparent failure, thanks to AI, is ultimately on the side of progress, because I think that although I can imagine a strong capitalism, I still think it's at the expense of a lot of people at the bottom. Obviously, if it's a strong capitalism, the people at the bottom are not numerous enough, they're not organised enough, they aren't as strong as the middle class. Because I'm making this hypothetical situation like that, and that's happened. To be honest, that's happened. I mean, it might be subtly different in Scandinavia and stuff, where they built up a strong welfare state that provides for all their citizens. But I'm talking from a British perspective here. Now, in terms of whether AI will take over and destroy the middle class, just wipe them out, so making the middle class even more than they already are on our side, well, that is a wait and see thing, isn't it? Because AI seems like it's doing that now, so there's no reason to think it won't as such. But it's such a big thing we're on about here that my mind, I'll speak for myself, can't help but just think, well, yeah, I have to wait and see on that, because the claims from the techies are absolutely revolutionary. So how much impact will this AI jobs bloodbath have? Will it wipe out the middle class, or will the middle class stay in place? So that point I made earlier about how you don't have to think about politics all the time, just a supportive system. Yeah, so I'm like a class war person now. I wish that I'd understood it more when I was younger. But there you go. That's that is. Um, so like I said, you don't have to think of politics all the time, but it's a supportive system. That's what we're saying. That's all we're saying. It's for fair shares, for merit, equality that continues to provide. It doesn't have to ever cut back. That's usually ideological when the right do say that. So how would this look? Because I've often gone on about how the state superstructure has got to go, and I'm trying to mature my view to having a view that is consistent with the way with real politique, but it's class war, but it's not old-fashioned socialism, nationalisation. It's the modern stuff, the getting money to people, tax and spend, Scandinavia type stuff. Where what I would do is I would think, as long as there's a market economy that provides goods across a wide area, then you can whack tax and spending really high. I mean, not all at once. I accept that you've got to do it in consistent with what the markets will accept. Otherwise, they'll crash your economy, etc. Now, if you do that, if you do it in a way that you say, look, this is what we're going to do, this is what we want to do, but we'll respect, not upsetting the markets, we'll do it according to a timetable which you agree with, which we can say, like, you know, and make this all, so that when we start doing it, we finish the job. Now, I don't give a damn about how high up the tax and spend as a proportion of GDP goes. You know, so if you said to me 75%, 80%, yeah, it's the key here is providing for all. Definitely. The market is just the best way to distribute goods across a wide area. That's the only particularly right-wing thing I agree with. I mean, it's not particularly just right-wing, is it, though? It's a liberal policy as well. It's like liberalism and markets go together. And I think that is the liberal or the right-wing thing, right? And everything else is radical social democracy. Obviously, some aspects of this, like the NHS and free education, they're socialist because they're universal. And universal basic income, pitched high, is I think socialist as well. But overall, it would, if we're being precise about this, academic, if you like, because there's a market and because we're using the wealth creation, and then we're redistributing it all over the place. It's radical social democracy. It's the very far furthest left of social democracy, I think. I'm willing to go beyond Sweden. Let's put it that way. Willing to go beyond France. Willing to go beyond Nordic model on how much the tax is spent. Now, of course, my state superstructure stuff, I don't want power to corrupt us. And I would like this to be discussed. That's something that prevents that happening, such as you can have people who are always there who are just showing people the ropes and being paid for it, for such as procedural stuff. But I would like just people that go in there, get shown that it's really equal. They're there for too brief a time to get corrupted, and then they're gone, and then we bring a new lot in. That sort of thing, something like that. And I'm not going to dictate on this because I don't want to contradict myself, but something along those lines, something that gets rid of the corruption. We know power corrupts, right? We know it, but we don't do anything about it. Do you know why? Because those who've got the power, the ones who would have to decide that. It's so twisted. And yeah, and I'd be happy to have diversity stuff in that place as well. Obviously, there's bloody well bringing it all the same type. So you get this cross representation, and that gets the best sort of like consensus. Can't have just all young people, or just all old people, or just all white skinned people. You know, or all people that are middle class or whatever, or people working class. Just want to get this right. So yeah, that's my video. I've got the class consciousness in it. This working class consciousness is not anti-middle class, by the way. It's not when you think that the middle class have come over to us. So it's become more of a people thing. But I'm still very happy with that kind of language because it reflects what I know from when I was young. So there's that and uni, and also just experience as well, knowing what it's like to be without money. And I think this is the big thing because you see, there was people without education at one time. So what we did was we provided them with free education. There was people who couldn't afford education, see, so there was people without education, so we provided them with free education. There was people without healthcare because they couldn't afford healthcare, so we provided them with free healthcare. Well, now there's people with an absence of money, so we can provide them with money. It's just the same thing. It's like you need money. If you need healthcare, you need education. And yeah, being healthy, getting education can take yourself up there. But you've seen it over and over again that there's always going to be people who are struggling. In the middle class are now fearing for their very existence. You know, their very existence. They think they're going to get wiped out by AI. So yeah, I think that no wonder the middle class have come over was given me thinking. I think that no wonder that's just going to get stronger. I think because we're if you said to 5 years ago, I would have said around 2023 start to be in in the AI revolution. So we're in it now, but we're in it in 2024 as well, 2025, 2026, 2027, 28, 29, 30. So yeah, I think it just gets stronger from here. So I think it's strong now for the first time. And that's because I'm influenced by all the online stuff I see. The improvements in AI intelligence staggering over just 7 years or something. And yeah, that's why I think we're now in that game. So this has mainly been a class-based video, but yeah, you've also heard a continuation of the AI stuff. And that's the video. Thank you for listening. Bye. Stream.